Holy smokes, we are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost. If you want to support the home for the true college football sickos with a donation to help us keep the lights on, hit that $sign where you make a comment and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody. Everybody, welcome on in. Welcome on into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. After a million hours, maybe not a million, a couple 100,000 hours of talking to BTM and his associates, the chatter behind the curtain, I am ready to give you just a little bit more detail on what the Big Ten is thinking. Primarily, the four Big Ten decision makers when it comes to the next wave of realignment. I get it. If and when the Big Ten expands, you need 13 votes out of 18. But the other schools are basically going to fall in line. They're going to fall in line behind the Michigan-Wisconsin faction or the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions faction. And this time, which is different than historical precedents, this time the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions have more stroke than they've really ever had before because they acquiesced. They said okay to Oregon and Washington. At the last moment, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa was another school that lined up behind everybody else and said, let's bring on Oregon and Washington. They come in as half rate. Everything is kumbaya. I am not, now, we're not saying there is a division in the, well, there is factions in the Big Ten. But it ain't like what was going on during COVID, where the conference was fracturing. It ain't that. But there is, every school, just like every conference, looks out for its own interest. Every school in the Big Ten looks out for its own interest. Just like every school in FBS, obviously. So we're going to give more details on that. What is nothing, let me say this 1,000 times. Nothing is imminent. I say that every live show. If something happens tomorrow, I am going to be the most shocked. I will eat 2 cheeseburgers if something happens tomorrow or the next day or the next day. Nothing is imminent. But we also have good reasons to believe the next wave of disruption is happening before 2030. Let me also say this. You can take this however you want to take it. I said this last year. I said it. I have not changed. No door is closed. Nothing has been settled yet. It hasn't. It's not a cop-out. I'm not hedging. I'm giving you the truth. Remember when a whole bunch of people lined up last year and said, there is no way that Clemson and Florida State went into the courts and sued the ACC if they did not have an invitation waiting for them once they got out? You remember everybody lying? Basically everybody. Almost. The logic, and it was logical, but we were being told at PATC the opposite. No, nothing's been no. There is no invitation waiting for anybody. It's not how it works. It can't happen. It's not even possible. But a lot of people said, no way would Clemson go into the courts and not have that power to invitation ready for them. They know exactly where they're going. No, they don't. There's no way that Florida State, the big brand of Florida State, don't know exactly. They wouldn't go through all this trouble. No, Florida State does not know where they're going yet. And they definitely did not know where they were going when they sued the ACC. As we told you at the time. It's the truth. Which, in my perception, in my opinion, it makes what Florida State and Clemson did, what they achieved, and they achieved a lot, it makes it even more impressive. Because they went out there, they took on a political cost, especially Florida State, and the way they did it. without knowing for sure if they do have a landing spot, when they would have a landing spot, how much would it cost. So they did risk, because there is nothing waiting for them. Now, I know a lot of people reported that. A lot of people on X said it. A lot of people were convinced, but it wasn't true. And we've been telling you that the whole time. Because if it was true, why haven't Florida State and Clemson and other schools left yet? The settlement is done. There is, now I say this, and I want, and it is not a contradiction. It's going to sound like it's a contradiction. It's going to sound like it's a contradiction, but it's not. And I've already taken an L on a certain aspect of this. But I'm going to tell you guys something. Nothing is imminent, but, and this is where the contradiction, you think it's a contradiction, but there is a lot of action and it is fluid. Oh, great. How can that possibly, how can there be a lot of action, a lot of fluidity, and nothing is imminent? That's how it is. Okay, so last June 15th, when we did a live show and we said that Clemson and Florida State were not the number one targets of the Big Ten and the SEC, but we believe they're going to get to where they need to get to when it comes to the stratification line. They're too valuable of school, too valuable not to get where they need to get to compete at the highest level of college football and of college sports. But we told you the truth that they were not the number one or number two targets for the SEC and the Big Ten. And I sat there for weeks praying that there'd be some big time reports coming out. And sure enough, it happened in the month of August. That lined up perfectly what we gave you on June 15th. I'm sitting here praying once again that there is some reports out there that are going to come out to tell you all that nothing is imminent. We've gotten that from reporters. We just got that from Ross Gellinger. He snuck that in that article where he talked about clandestine phone call between some Big 12, some ACC, and Smash Capital. In that same article, he also said, he slipped it in there, Power 4 conference realignment is not imminent. But the other part where I'm praying that there comes a report soon, it is the report saying things are active and things are fluid. Schools are lining up option A, option B, option C. Schools are talking to everybody. And now you throw in the mix of private equity, private capital at a conference level. Potentially, it's going to happen. Maybe not this year. Well, something's going to happen this year. But this is coming into the college football, college sports world. And you add that into the mix. You add a third party into the mix besides your media partner, your institutions. It is a mad, mad scramble. And that is going to be reported on at some point. These schools, these conferences are not just sitting there going, well, we're just going to sit here and we're not going to talk with each other, even though it's legal now. We can have first party talks. No, that's not happening. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot. So we are going to do the Holy Smokes Theater update. And as you can see, later on in the monologue, 4 Big Ten teams have walked in there. They've sat down in the first row, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to go into some level of detail that we haven't pushed on. There are 2 lines of thinking in the Big Ten when it comes to what the Big Ten should look like by 2030. Not on 2030. This is going to happen before 2030. There's a lot of overlap interest, but there are individual interests at stake. So we're going to go through that. So we're going to be talking Big Ten allegiances to some of these ACC candidates. So we're going to be talking about that. We have got a big stack show. We're going to start out with a little story about private equity. Greg, why are you talking private equity again? Because it's just another example. We've got to talk about it, guys and gals. We have to. This is college football's peek around the corner. It has incredible ramifications on the decisions that the conferences and schools will make in the future. It might start small, but if it comes in small, if it comes in large, whatever, it's going to grow. So we're going to start out with the private equity story. I just want to hit upon it real quick. I want to give you all an example of why when we talk Big 12, when we talk Big 10, when we talk SEC, what are they looking for in a potential private equity engagement? They're looking for more than just cash. This is another great example of what a professional league, for this example that we're going to talk about today, what are they looking for besides upfront cash? And then the spotlight team of the day is the Clemson Tigers. As you all know, Greg the Gold, and that's what I am in 2025, Greg the Gold has Clemson winning the ACC championship, going all the way to the national championship to play Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns. We are going to do a spotlight on Clemson. We're going to break it all down on Clemson. Yesterday we did Georgia Tech. We've done Michigan State. We're going to go every live show. We're going to have a spotlight. We're going to break down a team. So hopefully if you disagree or agree with our breakdown, put it in the comments. Let's do a roll call. We've got other stuff we're going to talk about as well today. We have got a lot. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your generosity. Holy smokes. Mark Woods received a gift and membership by Jimmy Austin. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate all your generosity, all your support. Both of you are knighted, cloak and dagger. Thank you so very much. You can go to our library of episodes, Mark Woods, and we just dropped episode 58 about an hour and a half ago. To give a little bit of a quick peek and what we're going to talk about today in the Holy Smokes Theater. Just a touch of what we're going to talk about. Again, become a member, get the early peek Cloak and Dagger episodes that you can watch. And then we have thrown up, I think, about 450 other episodes that everybody can watch. So become a member of our program. Go to the link in the description box below the video. Hit the link and become a member. Early peek Cloak and Dagger. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I appreciate the generosity. Let's do a roll call real quick. We got a lot of people in here early. We've got a big show. Big show. George Holton, Osceola the Trucker, Kayla Ramirez, Jimmy's in the house, Laura Weiss, Daniel Gorby, Ryan Thomas, Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina, Bimba, 7579, MGC Sooner is in the house. Tim Bells, let's do this thing. Skaven, yes. How hot is it in Gopherland? Where it's been raining all day today. The rain has not stopped. If the fat guy from Minnesota gets swept up in a wave of water and gets tossed out of here, you know why. It has been raining all day long. The architect is here. Mayor McCheese, Christopher Shannon, Oklahoma. It's raining like mad in Gopherland. It's crazy. John Dry is in the house. I got the keys. Keith Moore is here. Vox Quindaro. I was busy. I should have done the air drum, but I'm even when the show has started, sometimes I'm working during when the prelude has begun. CFB Plus is in the house. Texas State to the Pac-12 is basically a done deal. We'll get to that as well. Ryan Thomas, Missouri is misery in the summer. Georgia Bulldogs, Don Scruggs is here. Tumasta is here. Humble Bumble Duck is here. G. Brew is here. My goodness. Jonathan Price, let's go Greg. Bob Swanger, the Mountaineer. Daniel Gygax, Bill G is in the house. Any Texas State Pac-12 news? Well, we're going to go to what Pete Thamel reported. Gerald Jones is in the house. Amazing Blue. Cranky Tiger. We're doing a Clemson breakdown. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, Cranky Tiger. It is Greg the Gold. We're doing a Clemson Tiger breakdown today. Kenneth Maynard is in the house. There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. UNC, Notre Dame hold all the realignment cards. Bo Weevil, Clemson Tiger, Bo Weevil's in the house. Big Gun Shop, we have not heard from Miami yet. We're going to get to that in a moment. We will get to that later on in our monologue. Richard Brookins is in the house. Oh, Jeff Olson, the evil Badgers are as clean as the whistle can be. Oh, really? Oh, really? No! Christopher Mercado is in the house. The Surrey Killer, Mr. Monkey says, I don't see SMU on that board. Board is nullified. 21 bucket 21. Charlie Atwood, gold or cold? I get confused. You're not going to be confused this year. Charlie Atwood, no confusion this year at all. Saved by grace. Thanks for coming on in. Movie Time Blues is here. Patrick the Baylor Bear is in the house. Jose. P.O. No Fan, hello, is in the house. Jacobra Cat. Is the Big Ten uneven revenue proposal an attempt to lure in these elitist ACC schools, like how honing our innate psychic powers summons orb UFOs? Wow. I don't think there is a Big Ten proposal yet, right? And we're going to... There's no question there's been discussions on it. The Washington athletic director, Sean, would not come out and talk about it in an interview if it hasn't been somewhat socialized behind closed doors in the Big Ten. And for the last 18 months here at Peek Around the Corner, we have said as much. Like, there is a chance of that happening. I don't think it's going to be a radical plan. But, you know, when you're asking the Buckeyes to play all those big noon games, I can see why they want a little bit more money, right? If you're asking certain programs to carry more weight, eventually they're probably going to get more of that media money. Now, there are other programs that are taking on time slots that the big guys don't want to take on. So they're proving some value to the conference. Overall, I think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be radical. I don't think the amounts are going to be dramatically different. And unlike a lot of you in the PATC family who keep saying that the Big Ten's in trouble because of their TV ratings, no, the Big Ten is not in trouble. They're making a lot of money for their media partners. They're making a lot of money for themselves. And they're going to have a monster contract when the next one comes around. However, just like everybody else, they're going to be looking out for their self-interest. And if, more like when the Big Ten expands again, it's got to be the right blend. It's got to be the right blend. There's got to be something there for the media partners. There's got to be something there for the Big Ten presidents. They might have to be something there for our future overlords. That third-party money that might be probably, most likely, eventually coming in. It's all about the right blend. Nothing has been settled yet. No decisions have been made. Things are fluid. Things are fluid. Things are fluid. Thank you so much, Cobra Cat. I appreciate your generosity so very much. Amazing Blue sent a gift membership. DW, when you get a chance, please say thank you to Amazing Blue for his generosity. For you are a new member of our program. Congratulations to both of you. Both of you are knighted. Nope, that's not what I meant. Both of you are knighted, Cloak and Dagger. Amazing Blue, DW, I was not saying no to you. I hit the wrong button. Thank you, Amazing Blue, for your generosity. Appreciate it so very much. Ryan Willie, my goodness. He agrees with a fellow Evil Badger, Jeff Olson. My goodness. What is going on?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Ryan Willie, I agree with my fellow Evil Badger, Jeff Olson. Thank you so much for the super chat. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for your generosity. James Davis is in the house. Jared Jones is here. Larry Andrak, I am here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Larry. Appreciate you coming on in. Jay Chapman is in the house. Nobody is late. Sean is here. That could be Sean. That very well could be Go Black 45. Texas State is a party school. Rob Wrights is in the house. Okay, let's do this. We've got a lot to get to. And since we're talking a lot about Texas State, Pete Thamel, sources, Texas State officials have informed the Sun Belt that they are expecting an offer from the Pac-12 in the near future. The talks between Texas State and the Pac-12 have intensified in the last 12 hours. Wow. So it looks like it's happening, ladies and gentlemen. It's what we, it's the peak that we gave about 3 months ago now. And Texas State is the only school that we have been told here at Peek Around the Corner. So if there is going to be a 9th full member being added on before July 1st, we're going to be surprised here at Peek Around the Corner. We have no other steam. Now, I do not believe that the Pac-12 is going to stay at 8 full members. I think they're going to grow. I just don't think it's going to happen before July 1st. But we're all going to watch it together. If I get any information, I'll pass it on. But it's been Texas State, Texas State. Also, some other realignment news before we get to the big stories of today. A volley of non-FBS realignment moves are coming. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports. Utah Tech and Southern Utah's additions to the Big Sky in 26 gets the league to 11 members and comes a week after Sacramento State announced its departure to the Big West in all sports except football starting in 2026. The departure of the Utah schools, plus an addition of 5 ASUN schools, brings the United Athletic Conference, the UAC, in 2026 to 8 members. 7 of them playing football: Tarleton, Abilene Christian, UT Arlington, Eastern Kentucky, North Alabama, Austin Peay, Central Arkansas, and West Georgia. The ASUN will be left with 7 more like-minded basketball-centric schools. The 2 conferences, the ASUN and the UAC, will remain separate, hold individual championships, and each retain their NCAA automatic qualifier, but will work together to leverage their collective assets, such as a unified media package and a built-in scheduling agreement. The 2 conferences are going to be separate. Thank you, Lee, for that information. The Minnesota tight end committed to Penn State. Thank you. That's Pearson. A very good athlete. He's going to have to take a couple years to put on some weight. The 2 conferences, ASUN and UAC, they will remain separate, but work together to leverage their collective assets, such as a unified media package and a built-in scheduling agreement. Could we be seeing that elsewhere? Let's say in the G6 world, or even possibly the A4 world? Could it? Could it? Could it? The moves from these conferences speak to the evolution of Division I under the House settlement. As leagues, unlike at the FBS level, it seems, are attempting to form a more like-minded in sport-specific groupings. Okay, so that's the news. That's the realignment that is imminent, right? Texas State and what's going on here. Let's get to the news. First of all, I want to hit this. This is not college football related, but I think this is important. Just to go through real quick. From ESPN Press Room. ESPN signs new 5-year media rights agreement and expands relationship with the Premier Lacrosse League. ESPN and the Premier Lacrosse League, powered by Ticketmasters, have renewed a 5-year media rights agreement that will span ESPN platforms. The deal begins with the 2026 season and encompasses all Premier Lacrosse League regular season, All-Star, playoff, and championship games, Maybelline Women's Lacrosse League games, as well as future PLL and WLL drafts. Alongside, now listen to this, alongside the multi-year agreement, ESPN has also made a minority equity investment in the PLL, in the Premier Lacrosse League, recognizing significant growth potential in the PLL's forward-thinking approach and commitment to innovation. So ESPN renewed a 5-year media rights agreement, and they also made a minority equity investment into the league. This partnership marks a historic moment for the PLL and the WLL. ESPN's renewed commitment, along with their investment, speaks volumes about the future of lacrosse. Together, we're not only bringing the best in professional lacrosse to more fans more often, but we're building a model for how modern sports leagues can grow with equity, innovation, and access at the center. This renewed partnership with ESPN is a major milestone for the continued rise of PLL and WLL. It underscores the momentum behind both our men's and women's leagues and the demand from the growing passionate fan base, unlocking new opportunities for our players, partners, and fans alike. All PLL and WLL games will stream on ESPN Plus, with selective games also presented across ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2. And finally, Roseland Durant, Executive Vice President, ESPN Programming and Acquisitions, said, "We're thrilled to continue our relationship with the Premier Lacrosse League and expand our commitment to the ascendant sport by bringing the recently launched Women's Lacrosse League to ESPN. This renewal reflects our dedication to showcasing the best in lacrosse, growing the game across all levels, and delivering world-class competition to fans year-round. The 2025 PLL television schedule is available. Additional details on international distribution will be announced forthcoming." Was this about college football? No. But did we have to talk about it here at Peek Around the Corner? Yes. We've been talking about how Peek Around the Corner, we've been giving you the information on why the Big 12 is interested, why the Big 10 is interested. Perhaps the SEC is interested to bring on another partner, a third-party partner, beyond the regular media, traditional media partners. It's not just about the cash. That's a big part of it, but it's not just about the cash. It's about spreading your brand, your Big 12 brand, your Big 10 brand, your SEC brand. It's about building a relationship with somebody who's connected with some big streaming partner or a media partner themselves directly. We've been talking about this for months. You just saw an example, a small one, talking about a Premier Lacrosse League, a professional Premier Lacrosse League. But if ESPN is bullish on this and they want to buy into it, they think the money, the national revenue, the national advertisers, the eyeballs is going to grow. They want in. They bought into the Premier Lacrosse League and they re-upped it to renew it. These 8 teams are going to get more money. Well, think about that in the FBS world. It's possible. It is possible that a conference is going to let a media partner or a private equity partner to come on in with connections with a monster potential media partner, streaming partner, to get them on in, to buy in a little bit to the conference because they see growth. And at the end of it, it talked about international distribution, which we believe is going to play a part in the next 10 years. This is what the Big Ten is thinking. This is what the SEC is thinking. It's not, these schools and these conferences can get cash at a very low rate. But it ain't just about the cash. It's about something else. And this is a prime example of what the other part of the equation is. So that's why we had to cover it. We got a lot more to get to. This is a massive, massive show. Jacob Cat. So the rumors of New Mexico and Wyoming to the PAC is similar to the lies I tell myself every morning when I look in the mirror, studying the lines etched by a life harder than Moen's preferred beverage. I never heard of the New Mexico, Wyoming to PAC rumors. I never read that. Interesting. Thank you for the super chat, Jacob Cat. Thank you for your generosity and your very creative super chats. I love them. Thank you so much. I really never heard of that rumor. So ESPN thinks there's more money in pro lacrosse over pro baseball. I have my doubts. I don't think they think that. I think they see a small time investment worth doing because there's more growth in lacrosse. I don't think there's more money in lacrosse. I don't think anyone thinks that. Although I think Major League Baseball model is absolutely broken. Daniel Gorby becomes an early peak cloak and dagger member. Holy smokes. Thank you so very much, Daniel Gorby. I appreciate it. You are knighted, cloak, and dagger. Mr. Seminole, longtime PATC family member. You can go to our library of shows and watch all the episodes, and that even includes the member-only episodes, early peak cloak and dagger. Thank you, Daniel Gorby. Thank you so very, very much. Okay, let me see what else we got here. We've got a big time here. We're getting through it, guys. We're getting through it. We're getting through it before we get to our massive story. Let's do. We got to do our spotlight show. Spotlight. Cade Klubnik, Clemson. Once we are finished with our Clemson spotlight, we're going to enter into the Holy Smokes Theater. We're going to walk right in there and we're going to see 4 big-time schools sitting in the front row that we've never seen before in the theater. Exclusive Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik talks senior year NFL and new EA video game Chapel Fowler, the state. We don't go through the whole article. Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik was thrilled when EA Sports reached out early this year and invited him to a cover shoot for the college football 26 video game. There was only one issue. On the day of the shoot, he had to practice. Some players had the days off or got permission from the coaches to miss practice for the cover shoot, but Klubnik wasn't willing to miss a day of Clemson spring ball. Now that is a championship quarterback, ladies and gentlemen. He wasn't going to miss a day just to go on a shoot for EA Sports. He politely declined EA Sports' request to appear on the game's deluxe edition cover. Whenever I declined it, I honestly thought it was kind of all or nothing, Klubnik said. I thought that I wasn't going to be able to be on the cover. 1 month later, EA Sports representatives followed up. The photo shoot wasn't a requirement. They still wanted Klubnik on the cover, and they were flexible. He is, after all, the returning starting senior quarterback for a Clemson team that won the ACC championship and made the college football playoff last year, returned 16 of its 22 status, is ranked number 2 in ESPN's post-spring way too early top 25, and has the 8th best odds to win the 2025 national title under Coach Dabo Swinney. The 8th best? It should be the 2nd best. some good value. Some good value. Put a little bit of money on Clemson. There's some good value sitting there. EA Sports put the beloved video game series, previously known as NCAA football, on pause for 11 years due to concerns about players' likeness and compensation, but revived the series 4 years ago during the NIL era. The first reboot, College Football 25, came out last summer. College Football 26 goes on sale July 10th. Growing up, playing the game, it had always been a dream of mine, Klubnik said. During a promotional interview for the game, Klubnik also touched on his decision to return to Clemson, the Tigers' 2025 outlook, in his go-to Chick-fil-A order. By the way, he puts pepper jack on his Chick-fil-A sandwich. It's about the only thing I disagree with Cade Klubnik on. You don't have to put pepper jack on your spicy chicken sandwich. Come on, Klubnik. Come on. You're obviously an expert, a question to Cade Klubnik, on the ins and outs of Death Valley. What it's like to see your stadium recreated virtually, and do you have a favorite detail? Cade Klubnik, yeah, it's pretty awesome. They have us hopping off the buses, running down the hill, and it's pretty crazy seeing the players' perspective of looking out onto everything. Whenever I got to see that, it's spot on. It's literally exactly what it looks like. Having the fans right there next to you and everything. If somebody had never seen a video of Clemson's entrance before, it's exactly what a video would look like. It's pretty cool. What was your deliberation process after the Texas game about coming back for your senior year? Was there much of a process to it? Or was it always Clemson in 2025? Klubnik, I definitely wanted to hear where I was going to be at in the NFL draft, especially after taking a step in terms of my production. But I think that there were a couple of things that went into it, me coming back, where I was draft-wise. I think that my draft process probably would have helped me out a little bit. But I think I just wasn't where I wanted to be at. And also, with what we've had coming back, it wasn't very hard to convince me to come back to Clemson, I don't think. We hear about tampering and portal issues. That's not the case for your team. What's your take on why Clemson is so good at retaining guys? Cade Klubnik, I think for one, it really starts with the belief in our coaches, and the belief that they have in us is just really, really special. Talking to some guys over the last couple of weeks around the country, you'll see the news headline that player X has hit the portal, and you're like, dang, why is that guy leaving? And then you sit down, you talk to him, and he's like, nah, that coach kicked me off the team. Not because I did anything bad, he just doesn't want me there, and I'm a 2-year starter. You hear stories, you hear these stories. So guys love it at Clemson. The coaches believe in the players, but also there's a culture of people who just love it there. And it's just super, super special. You're probably seeing the ESPN's mock draft that has you going number 1 overall in 2026. And you've seen the championship buzz for Clemson. Do you see that as a distraction? Finally in the article. Klubnik, I don't really listen to it or care about it because, you know, a year ago, everybody told me that I sucked and that we were all horrible and Coach Sweeney needed to get fired. I needed to get fired. Coach Riley needed to get fired. And then there's this year. They're saying the opposite. It's people just flipping back and forth. So yeah, I'm not really paying attention to that. Cade Klubnik interviewed by the State. Mr. Fowler, great interview. Cade Klubnik, Pretty cool guy. Really, he is. And he played great. The second half of the season, he was absolutely fantastic. Let's go more into our Clemson spotlight today. It's not just about Clay Klubnik. The team is absolutely loaded. Last year, Klubnik, the quarterback, over 3,600 yards passing. 36-6 touchdown interception ratio. My goodness. 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. A 148.6 quarterback rating. Clay Klubnik ready to lead for 2025. You've got Antonio Williams. A couple of years ago, he was injured. It was a comeback year last year for Antonio Williams. Great wide receiver, 75 receptions, 904 yards receiving, 11 receiving touchdowns. The leader of that wide receiver room for Clemson. And of course, last year they had a couple outstanding freshmen. Bryant Wesco, who's put on, all the reports are saying he put on about 15 to 20 pounds. He looks absolutely phenomenal. 41 catches in his true freshman season. 708 yards, 17.3 average per reception. He can get deep on you. 5 receiving touchdowns. Now, I talk a lot about Wesco. But shame on me. Shame on me. Shame on me. I don't talk enough about TJ Moore, the other freshman. 45 receptions, 651 yards, 14 and a half yards per average, 5 touchdowns, 5 receiving touchdowns. Clemson, absolutely loaded on offense. Absolutely. Now, here's the thing about their defense. We know about TJ Parker. We know about Peter Woods. Defensive end. They moved Peter Woods to defensive tackle this year. Parker is going to cause a whole bunch of problems for the opposing teams. We've talked about Wade Woodaz, who's a first-team All-ACC coming into this year. Sammy Brown, another good running linebacker. Avion Terrell, great cornerback. We talk about these stud players, right, on defense. But we cannot overlook that Clemson could not stop the run last year. It was shocking to see. It was shocking. On paper, Clemson should be able to go back to their historic norms and have that dominating defensive line, shut that running game down by Woodaz, the linebacker. They should be able to shut it down. But that is one part that we're all got to keep an eye on. Clemson's stopping the run. They got to do way better this year than they did last year. And then, of course, the true freshman running back, Gideon Davidson, who has not faced any live bullets, but had a spectacular spring for Clemson. Gideon Davidson, remember the name, true freshman running back. Is Dabo Swinney going to lean on him? I would like to hear from Clemson Tiger fans in the chat room. Is Dabo Swinney going to have enough confidence in Gideon Davidson to give him the rock early on? That's a question I do not have an answer for. But overall, take the good with the bad, take the great with the bad. Clemson Tigers are going to win the ACC championship. They're going to get to the championship against Texas. So we shall see. Clemson could not stop a hiccup last year. Absolutely. Absolutely. Klubnik is from the 512. He should be backing up Arch. Well, I got a Klubnik and Manning championship game. That is my prediction. And now I still have time to change it. But that's what I got. I've got Clemson and Texas in the championship game in my way too early college football playoff predictions. I'm going to make a change. There's going to be at least one change in here. I'm going to get Louisville in the playoffs. I'm going to sneak Louisville in here. Somewhere, somehow, Louisville is going to be in the playoffs. Okay, now let's go into the Holy Smokes Theater. We have covered a lot early on here. We have covered a lot of football. But we got to go into the Holy Smokes Theater. And what do we see? Okay, so let me explain this. You got to give me some time to explain what we've been working on here at Peek Around the Corner. We don't take this lightly. Been talking to everybody that we know, B. Tim and his associates, the chatter behind the curtain. Nothing is imminent, but there is a lot of action. Schools and conferences are putting out plan A, plan B, plan C. They've got consulting firms. They're spending a lot of money. They're all talking with each other. There's a lot of gamemanship going on. There's cloak and dagger. There are first-party talks. There are third-party talks. Everything is going on. Even saying all that, we do not believe anything is imminent. But we do believe, because of the uncertainty, how do I say this? We believe that there are reasons beyond the commissioner of these conferences. There are reasons why no one has really pulled the trigger on a conference level private capital or private equity deal. Schools are not really buying into it quite yet. But there are a lot of discussions going on. And at some point, some point, you're going to see national reporting on this. Today in the Holy Smokes Theater, again, nothing is imminent, but we're going to talk about the Big Ten. From everybody that we have talked to, everybody that was involved in the USC story, everybody that was involved in the Oregon-Washington story, that we could give you guys the peek around the corner, the successful peek around the corner. Nothing is imminent. Nothing has been settled. And we've been saying this for months and years when it comes to the ACC drama. There are two different factions in the main factions in the Big Ten when it comes to this particular realignment. Not so much historically, but in this particular time, there are two different Big Ten factions. The traditional Michigan-Wisconsin faction, in which a lot of schools line up the same interests that Michigan and Wisconsin has. But this particular case, there is an Ohio State, Penn State faction. And in the next wave of disruption, Ohio State is going to have the most stroke. because they acquiesced to the latest expansion of Washington and Oregon. All four of these schools have different interests. The factions have a little bit of a different interest. As you see, there are two columns of schools that we wrote down here. Notre Dame, UNC, Virginia. There is great interest, of course, for Notre Dame by any faction of any Autonomy for a conference. UNC and Virginia, I know a lot of you don't agree with Virginia being up there, but they're up there. They're connected with North Carolina. When it comes to Michigan and Wisconsin, you're going to see the name Miami up there. We're not going to, with the whole Miami-Wisconsin thing going on, we're not going to take Miami. We've been told that Miami has a lot of interest in the Big Ten, and we've gone over the reasons for that. The Big Ten presidents, they like the research that Miami does. It's in a location that the national advertisers would like. We've gone over all this. We're not going to scratch Miami off because of what's going on between Miami and Wisconsin, at least not yet. But we're going to watch that story. It could have an effect on Miami's ability to get into the Big Ten. It could, especially when you got the Big Ten coming out and saying what they said about Miami. But what is really important in that story is, what does Miami and Wisconsin decide to do? Are they going to go through the whole court case? Is Miami going to come out? Is this more of a Miami thing? Or is this more of a Mario Cristobal thing? Also with the Michigan and Wisconsin faction is Georgia Tech. This is what we talked about just for a moment. Just for a moment at our early Pete Cloak and Dagger show. Georgia Tech, a door has been recently opened to us here at Peek Around the Corner. And Georgia Tech lies on the interest, the candidate list for both of these factions in the Big Ten. Not at the top, obviously, not the first or second targets, just like Miami. Miami's not the first or second targets. We've been saying that for well over a year. But Georgia Tech is now is in that second tier. If you go and go ahead and Google it. Georgia Tech and their peers. Georgia Tech, their peers, they consider Michigan and Wisconsin and Purdue their peers. We're going to have more to say about Georgia Tech as the days and weeks go on. But Georgia Tech is a program, an athletic department, much like Miami, but maybe on a different part of the spectrum, that is a good school to blend with another school to get a Big Ten invite. Georgia Tech does not have the brand value of Miami. Georgia Tech is looked upon as a potential get for Big Ten. The city of Atlanta, an international city, Atlanta. when again, there is this other layer to all this that we've never had to contend with when it comes to the next wave of realignment, and that is third-party private capital, private equity interest. Miami and Georgia Tech line up pretty good with those interests. So does Duke, by the way. From everybody that we have talked with, from all the conversations that we've had, and there's been conversations that I've never talked to you guys about, continuing conversations, Notre Dame, UNC, UVA, Miami, Georgia Tech, Duke. These are the schools that Michigan and Wisconsin would support. Now, maybe Miami falls off at some point, but we haven't been told that. And I think if that happens, we're a long ways away from that happening. Most likely it's going to get resolved. But these are the schools that Michigan and Wisconsin, that faction, Northwestern, Minnesota, that faction, most likely Nebraska, most likely USC, UCLA. I'm sorry, not Nebraska. Nebraska is with the Ohio State, Penn State faction. But most likely USC, UCLA, most likely Washington and Oregon, as Wisconsin and Michigan were the sponsor of Oregon and Washington. Now, if you look at the right side, Ohio State and Penn State, there's a lot more schools written down. Their doors are more wide open at Ohio State and Penn State. Now, I think Mullen is probably going to disagree with this list, and that's fine. There might be some Buckeye, Penn State out there disagreeing, but when it comes to the BTM and its associates, these are the schools. These are Florida State. There is some interest in Florida State with the right blend. Clemson with the right blend is something that Penn State can get back, can support. Now, we have Peek Around the Corner. We have said that we don't think there's any chance of a Clemson-Florida State combination. But a Clemson with the Georgia Tech, Florida State with the Georgia Tech, Florida State with Miami, a Clemson in Miami, it all works. It all can work, I should say. And of course, Penn State and Ohio State, there's a Notre Dame, UNC, Virginia. There is no difference within the Big Ten on who their number one targets are. Notre Dame, obviously. UNC, obviously. UVA. They want to get in that Mid-Atlantic if they can. They want Notre Dame if they can. If the SEC scoops up North Carolina and Virginia, like I think they will, I think they're going to be successful, then the Big Ten looks further down on the list. And if you look down further at the list, those are the schools that Ohio State and Penn State could support with the right blend, with the right backing. What's interesting is we were told that Ohio State still longs for Stanford. They did not want Oregon and Washington in before Stanford. Ohio State wanted Stanford. They couldn't get them. We have to have Stanford on this list. Got to put them there. And I think Once we get more reporting on this, once we get more speculation on this, don't be surprised that Stanford is on the list. But for those, okay, there's a couple of direct things that we've been told here about Georgia Tech. For those Clemson fans who want Clemson to join the Big Ten, for those fans of Florida State that want the Seminoles to join the Big Ten, it's good news that Georgia Tech is on this list. Both factions. Which here at Peek Around the Corner, we would have never have said that until, well, we got this about a week ago. We've been talking a lot to a lot of people. Today we're presenting this to you guys. This is good news if you're a Tiger or Seminole fan. Because if Notre Dame is not getting off the blocks, which it doesn't look like they're going to until the ACC completely implodes, if UNC Virginia is taken by the SEC, and the SEC does not take Clemson and Florida State, I think they will. That's my prediction. Mostly. But if they don't do the big scoop, if the Southeastern Conference doesn't do the big scoop, for the Buckeyes and Nittany Lions, it's these 5 schools that are going to be part of the Big Ten expansion. Some sort of blend. And Georgia Tech with Miami, they're a good blend for a Clemson, to get Clemson in, to get Florida State in. We were directly told something, and now I'm gonna shock a lot of people here, because we were told something directly that because I've always said Clemson and Florida State, they're not coming in together, not in the Big Ten. It's not the right blend. It's not even close. And we're going to stand on that mountaintop until somebody pushes us off. But we were told that the true traveling partner for Georgia Tech is Clemson. If the traveling partner equation becomes really important, then we were told, then I was directly told it's Clemson. Now, nothing against Clemson. Clemson, I do not, they're not really a Big Ten university, not yet. I know they have aspirations to increase their research in 2035. They hope to be AAU. But they're not really a Big Ten university yet. Florida State is ahead of them in many, many regards in research. So it might be that Clemson still can't quite get in the door. Ohio State and Penn State might say, look, let's say Georgia Tech and Clemson. But Michigan and Wisconsin, the whole faction says no. We don't know. Right? We don't know, because it's going to take 13 votes. 13 yes votes out of 18. But we were told that a Georgia Tech and Clemson were a true traveling partner. They're about 2 hours away. It is something that they don't have to take an airplane for, at least that one football game a year and the baseball games. And they would be true traveling partners. So if Georgia Tech picks up more steam, possibility in the Big Ten, the city of Atlanta becomes really important. If private equity comes on in, then that's going to help Clemson out. It also could help Florida State out. Duke is a long shot. And it's probably why they've been so damn aggressive. They have been one of the most aggressive behind the scenes. They're basically saying, we'll take care of ourselves. Give us a P2 invite. We cannot get, now again, some Buckeye people out there are probably going to disagree with us, but we are unable to get anybody to tell us that the Buckeyes are interested in Duke, that they would be on the candidates list. Same thing with Penn State. But we know that Duke has put out this, so Duke is in the Michigan-Wisconsin column. But they are the longest shot of any school that you see on the screen. As far as we're concerned, they are the longest shot. Notre Dame, UNC, Virginia at the top of either faction in the Big Ten. Miami and Georgia Tech are right there behind them. And there is an opportunity for Clemson or Florida State, not and, Clemson or Florida State to find the right partner for the chips to fall just right if they don't get picked up by the SEC. I happen to think that Clemson and Florida State are going to get picked up by the SEC. We have been told, other people have been told, Clemson, for whatever reason, historical reasons, the way they run their school, Clemson has a great relationship with North Carolina. Got to keep that in mind. Clemson has a great relationship with North Carolina. They have a great relationship with Georgia Tech. And you saw them have a scheduling agreement with Notre Dame. For whatever reason, I do not know the reason, but Clemson does have, even though they're not a Big Ten university, really they're not at this point. They have great relationships, and that matters. They're not going to be on the Michigan and Wisconsin side of the column, but they are on Ohio State and Penn State. So again, you've got different factions in the Big Ten with different interests. We have been working on this for a long time. This is more detailed. Daniel Gorby, Clemson was one of the original founders of the ACC with UNC. That's probably the reason. I don't know. We were told that over a year ago. That's why we had a live show. UNC and Clemson are holding hands at the center of the stage. Now, having said all of that, the chatter behind the curtain, again, nothing is imminent. Things are very fluid. And everybody's working out different options. It really starts with UNC. And North Carolina is such a complicated situation. Internally, statewide, the politics of it. There's a decent sized faction in North Carolina. that basically wants to keep everything the same if they can just make the money work. There's an SEC faction at North Carolina. Absolutely. And then you got the interest of North Carolina State that has to be looked out by the Board of Governors of the state of North Carolina. We have been given so much information on Virginia and North Carolina, continually talking with each other. They talk with each other first before they talk to anybody else. Allegedly, they're the ones who started the subgroups on the Magnificent Seven. They're the ones that started it. So there's a lot. Nothing has been settled. If somebody says to me that Florida State has an invitation to the SEC or the Big Ten in hand, it's not true. It's not true. If somebody says without a shadow of a doubt that Georgia Tech is going to the Big Ten, not true. Nothing has been settled. The blow up of the ACC has not been settled. Everybody's talking to these big capital firms, these equity firms. They're going to have a lot to say on it. Because I'm mostly talking about the Big Ten today, the Big Ten, I don't think it's if, I think it's when. It might not happen this year. Even if we get a report today or tomorrow or the next day saying that the Big Ten has said no to those 4 equity firms, at some point, the Big Ten is going to have a different partner. They're going to have somebody that's going to be able to push the brand internationally, somebody that's going to give them connections. And that interest has to be satisfied. These conferences are going to grow again. But it is a lot more difficult to figure out how these pieces are going to land, these great institutions, because of this third party that's going to come on in eventually. It is. Every day that you wake up, pretty much every day, you're seeing private equity. There's a story out there today, not just the Premier Lacrosse League that we talked about earlier today, but there is a hockey equipment company that just brought in private equity. And they're going to go international sales next. It's going on everywhere in sports. It's coming in. And they're going to have a say. They're going to have an impact. And we don't know what they're going to say, what they want. How are you going to grow the conference? Okay. Holy smokes. We got incredible super chats. My goodness. Based Jervin, I don't get the UNC UVA love. They don't draw ratings, nor are they good at football. Thank you for the super chat, Based. Again, it's football is incredibly important. The viewership numbers are important. But there are other things that are really important to the SEC presidents and the Big Ten presidents. UNC and Virginia would grow the footprint of both the Big Ten and the SEC. They have a huge growing student population. They have the right demographics. They have the right demographics when it comes to money in the States. They have the right interest in pull of international markets. There is a lot of reasons why Virginia and North Carolina are favored by the majority of the Big Ten and the SEC presidents, and it has nothing to do with football. But it is why I think that the SEC is going to do a bigger scoop than just North Carolina and Virginia. I cannot see the SEC saying no to Florida State and Clemson, but that is I made those predictions on April 9th. I could change them, but right now I'm not changing. But I don't see the SEC bringing in Florida State and Clemson without North Carolina and Virginia. North Carolina and Virginia are the number one targets. And it's not just me saying it. I've been saying it since June 15th. There's been now not so much here in 2025, but after June 15th to 24, there was lots of articles reporting the same thing. The SEC has not been quiet about this. They have leaked like a sieve. So has the Big Ten. But the SEC has been very aggressive. It's why Heather Dinich, Pete Thamel, Paul Feinbaum, Brett McMurphy, used to be Dennis Dodd, they've all reported the same thing. All of them. Thank you so much. Anthony Carlson, my goodness. 20 gifted memberships. Wow. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. And I don't see who were gifted the memberships for whatever reason. That is all gone out of my screen. Anthony Carlson, my goodness. Mr. Spartans, thank you so much for your incredible, very kind generosity. You've given 20 people a membership of this National College Football YouTube channel. We just dropped episode 58 today. All of you that were gifted a membership by Mr. Spartan Anthony Carlson, please say thank you to him for his incredible generosity. All of you are knighted, cloak and dagger. Thank you so much, Anthony Carlson. Thank you so very much. Wow. My goodness. Very humbled by that. Thank you. You need to knight me cloak and dagger. You are cloak and dagger still, Austin. You are cloak and dagger. If only the Big Ten looked at North Carolina the way the fans in here do. I get it. Now, not every... I get it. I do understand why people kind of look at North Carolina, Virginia and go, why would they be ahead of the two biggest football brands outside of the Big Ten and the SEC, and that's Florida State and Clemson? Why would they be ahead of Miami? I understand that. I can only relate to you what I've been told every single conversation. Every single conversation. The largest part of this equation for the SEC presidents, if we're looking at the SEC, is students. This is year one of the student apocalypse. The student numbers are going to start to drop. The availability of students is going to drop in this country. It just so happens that North Carolina and Virginia are going against the grain. And if you can have Virginia and North Carolina as SEC country plant the flag in those two state flagships, and the money that's coming out of those two states, the population growth, the new footprint in the international markets that are connected to those two schools, yeah, the SEC presidents want those two schools. And they have not been shy about talking about it. Now, the question is, does ESPN go, okay, North Carolina, Virginia, we'll take you on in, you get full freight, everybody's kumbaya, everybody's happy. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think that. I could be wrong. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because if the SEC is going to expand, they're going to have to go to 9 conference games. Most likely, they're going to have to bring in more money. And for the conference to expand and go to 9 conference games, wouldn't you want a Florida State and Clemson to be a part of that? At least one of those 2 schools that bring in that big football brand? But we shall see. Jay Chapman, no SEC expansion without North Carolina. I suppose my biggest question would be that since both Miami and Georgia Tech are both on the list, which one would be higher on the list if that would matter the most? I don't know, Kirk. It might be a case of we're not only talking the correct blend. If we're just talking the Big Ten here, which we are today, we're not just talking about the right blend between the media partner and the Big Ten presidents. We might be talking about the right blend between Michigan and Wisconsin faction versus Ohio State, Penn State faction. Got to remember something here. The last expansion, well, almost all the expansions have really gone the Wisconsin-Michigan way. USC and UCLA, everybody wanted them. Oregon and Washington, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Oregon and Washington, Michigan and Wisconsin faction wanted it. Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State did not want Oregon and Washington. But Michigan and Wisconsin faction won. Rutgers and Maryland. Once North Carolina and Virginia said no back in 2010, some of the Big Ten university presidents kind of pulled back, but Jim Delaney said no, we need to be a 2-region conference. We need to satisfy Penn State. And when they took in Rutgers and Maryland, that satisfied Ohio State, Penn State. Now, it also satisfied Michigan because Michigan has a lot of alumni living in the state of New Jersey. But this particular compromise within the Big Ten, it could decide who it's going to be between Miami and Georgia Tech. If Virginia and North Carolina are taken to the SEC, which I think they're going to be. Thank you so much, Mr. Spartan. My goodness. Unbelievable. Okay, we're going to go to your phone calls here. It has been a 1 hour and 30-minute monologue. My goodness, the phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. And phone lines are open. Again, I know there's going to be questions about Miami. We haven't changed Miami's status a lick. We haven't heard anything like, oh, cross Miami off the list because of the problems with Wisconsin. Now, that might happen. It might. It might. But we'll see how Miami reacts. We'll see what happens if it goes in the courts. The Big Ten did mention, kind of went hard on Miami, But we know at Peek Around the Corner, the interest in Miami. It is there. But it's also there for Georgia Tech. And that whole Georgia Tech thing might be a wild card when it comes to the opportunities of a Clemson or a Florida State to get in the Big Ten if they're not selected by the SEC. But yeah, Miami, we got them on both columns today. Could that change? Yes. Now? No. Nope. I've asked the question. We're gonna follow that story. We're gonna follow it, but we're not. Larry M. Hawkeye GT is an athletic dead weight. When it comes to brand name, yeah, not all that high. Georgia Tech is going to need some help. They're going to have to come in with a bigger brand, like a Miami, with a bigger brand like Florida State, with a bigger brand like a Clemson. Everyone needs help. All these candidates need help, except for Notre Dame, North Carolina. All of them needs the right combination. Notre Dame and North Carolina are the only ones that don't need the right combination. That's why things are fluid. Things are not settled. Things have not been determined. But Georgia Tech, again, not a high brand. They're not the number 2 brand in the state in the city of Atlanta. They're not. It's probably Clemson. But Atlanta is a massive market, which is going to be important potentially for outside third-party money that might be coming on in. Atlanta, the demographics of Atlanta, a major city that all the Big Ten universities can fly to easily. And that includes Iowa and Iowa City. Georgia Tech is a Big Ten university on day one. Georgia Tech is going to be able to check the boxes off with the Big Ten presidents immediately, without question, which is something that Clemson and Florida State would like to attach themselves to, a Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is a candidate for Big Ten expansion. Now, when Georgia Tech was first brought up a couple years ago, I had not heard of, of course, Georgia Tech was a candidate way back in 2010, but I hadn't heard nothing of Georgia Tech. Immaculate brought Georgia Tech up a bunch of times, and he gets a lot of credit. Eventually, people started, Georgia Tech, to me, and so we've been talking about Georgia Tech for like the last 5 months. They're definitely going to be in the mix. They're in that bottom half of the second tier. Don Scruggs. Don, Georgia Bulldog.
From
Movie Time Blues.
Movie Time Blues is on the line. The floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
Doing okay right now. When I just saw the monologue, one thought that immediately came on my mind is, that talent show, America's Got Talent?
Yeah.
The Big Ten seems to be like they're the judges, and they're judging the competition.
Okay. Well, hold that thought. Movie Time Blues, you're correct. However, here's the Movie Time Blues. This is a beautiful, I'm glad you brought this up. It's almost like America's Got Talent. There are judges and the schools are up on the stage, right? like the Holy Smokes
Right.
Theater. Here is the problem. There's the stage, right? There's the judges. You got schools up there. Here is the problem. We don't exactly know who are going to be the judges. We know that Michigan is. We know that Wisconsin is. We know that Fox is. We know Ohio State is. We know Penn State is. But there might be another judge joining them. We don't know the name of that judge. We don't know the interest of that judge. We don't know how invested that judge is going to be. That's the problem with this Holy Smokes Theater drama. The ACC and the Big 12 schools getting together to talk with Smash Capital. Candlestein phone call. It's pervasive all over the place. That is why things are fluid. We don't know the exact judges when it comes to judging these schools. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and the SEC must also be a judge because they're looking at some of the same schools.
Yep.
So if SEC is a judge, so is Disney. So those two have to be judges as well.
What two?
Disney and the SEC.
Yep. Of course. And they might judge quicker. They might have it more lined up. They have less. Yeah, they have maybe possibly a more aligned judges. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and now the interesting aspect is Duke versus Stanford. Being that Ohio State is on the corner of Stanford, what are they going to do to try to pull or try to get the blend with Stanford? Should that become a necessity? Would they look at, let's say, a Big 12 program to pair with Stanford? Just up to the top of my head.
Yeah, there's no question that Stanford and Duke are the long shots on that board. But I think Stanford's going to be in the reporting once people start reporting on this again. And we know that the Buckeyes wanted Stanford. And I don't think they're going to just willy-nilly give that up. It's probably going to have to be given up. But then again, then we also look at the Notre Dame aspect of this. If Notre Dame, if the SEC scoops first and it's large, if it's UVA, UNC, Florida State, and Clemson, and then if Notre Dame is willing to jump, at that point, then Stanford, of course, is going to be heavily in the mix. So you got to have Stanford listed. And it's got to be listed on the Buckeye side of the ledger because Ohio State wants them.
Now we get to the one scenario that's what I will call the apocalyptic scenario. That if the P2 goes to 24 each, then all bets are really off.
Mm-hmm.
Then we are talking about all kinds of crazy scenarios popping off, but I don't think we'll get to that yet. It might happen in the future, but I don't see it going beyond 20 for the time being.
Okay. It could be.
All right, so that's it for now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Movie Time Blues. Thanks for the call, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, nothing is imminent. It is fluid. Everyone's talking with everybody, including backup plans. non-P2 plans. So, things are crazy. Another thing I want to bring up, we always get this in the chat room, but the Big Ten is...
From
Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, can you just hold on for a moment?
Yes.
We're mainly talking about the Big Ten today, and I'm trying to relay what we have been told by everybody that we talked to, everybody that gave us the USC story, everybody that gave us the Oregon-Washington story, everybody who has helped us break all these stories. This one is a lot more difficult, way more difficult. We have said that for 2 years it was going to be more difficult. There's going to be a lot more variables in play. Politics are going to be in play. Now private equity is probably going to be in play. So we're giving you what we believe is the perception of the Big Ten factions of the conference and of these ACC schools. I completely understand why some of you are befuddled in regards to that school does not move the needle, that school's football program stinks. But this is still the Big Ten. And the SEC is not that far apart from the Big Ten in the fact that there is other variables in play than just who gives you the highest viewership numbers. There's a lot more at play than just that. It's important. It's really important. Really important. So much to the fact that's why I think Florida State and Clemson are going to land in the P2, or they're going to get to where they need to get to. They're going to get paid what they need to get paid in some way, somehow, because they're too valuable not to. But having said that, there are other things in play. There has always been other issues at play in realignment. Always. Always, always, always. The school has to be aligned with the conference. This is not a 10-day decision. This is a 100-year decision. Now, that's how the presidents look at it. You got to satisfy the presidents. If you do not satisfy the president, the proposal is never going to reach Fox. Never going to happen. In the SEC, you got to satisfy the most powerful SEC presidents, or they're just not going to expand. They want North Carolina. They have leaked, they have told all the reporters this. I don't know how else. They could be dead bleeping wrong. Their assessment could be absolutely ridiculous. But that is what the SEC presidents, they want North Carolina. They want them. They're going to go after them. North Carolina, though, is a Rubik's Cube times 1,000. Very complicated situation. Go ahead, Ryan Willie. The floor is yours. Thank you so much for your patience.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
So, you missed my super chat from earlier.
I did? I thought I got them all. Hold on. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, Ryan Willie. Here, hold on. Once the season starts, your college football playoff predictions are located in Minnesota. Minnesota won't get in, even with their cupcakes. Huh? I'm
locked in.
Ryan Willie, let me give you a little bit of gold. Let me give you a little bit of, first of all, thank you for the super chat, Ryan Willie. Thank you so much for your generosity. I appreciate it so much. But let me give you a little bit of golden gold for propaganda. If Drake Lindsay, our freshman quarterback, our redshirt freshman quarterback, the next, I'm going to say it, the next Josh Allen, Drakeland's
Yeah. Whatever.
if he can just learn to check down, because what we've been hearing at PATC, the young man does not like to check down. He's too confident in his big arm. He's got to go more to check down Charlie. If he can just check down the Gophers with Darius Taylor and AJ Turner. The Gophers, they're going to cause a lot of problems in the Big Ten this year, starting October 4th at the Shoe in Columbus, Ohio. Go ahead, Ryan Willie. The floor is yours.
So, okay, this past Sunday on Moan After Dark, I was talking to Rent about the lawsuit between Wisconsin and Miami.
Okay.
And I basically told him that I hope Miami never gets into the big. My personal opinion.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but I just hope that they never do get in. But do you think the Big would ever consider Kansas? Because that's who I would like to see added to the Big.
Yeah, they have considered Kansas in the past, and they might consider Kansas in the future. I just don't think it's their window of time. I think the Big Ten, if they expand between now and 2030, it's going to be in the Southeastern Conference, or it's going to be Notre Dame. I mean, not the Southeastern Conference, the southeastern part of the country, or Notre Dame, or Stanford. I don't think Kansas is in the mix. They might become in the mix later on, but I don't think they are now.
Okay, so my hypothetical conference additions would be, now this would be going up to 24, which I know that might be a while before that happens, but what I would like to see is Georgia Tech, Florida State, Colorado, Kansas. I don't think Utah would make it, and then Stanford, Cal, to the Big Ten. That would make 24, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's probably not going to happen, but that's a scenario that I would like to see. So that's all I had. Thanks for taking my call.
Nope, you got it. Appreciate it, Ryan Willie.
All right.
Great call,
All right,
sir. Now, it's important, Florida, man. People moving to Florida in droves, over 1,000 a day. Yeah, Florida is a growing state, always growing. Number one, Florida, first of all, Florida State is an incredible brand, an emerging university, and I think they're going to get to the P2. But when I talk about North Carolina and Florida State, I'm talking about in North Carolina and Virginia, those two states, the demographics, the growth in population when it comes to high school students going into college. It is basically, that demographics is basically dropping everywhere in the country. Maybe it's not dropping in Florida, I don't know, but it is dropping pretty much everywhere else. But North Carolina, Virginia, it's not. And when it comes to money, the demographics of money to go to the university, again, North Carolina and Virginia are at the top. And you consider that North Carolina and Virginia do not have a SEC or Big Ten school in either state. So it's easier to brand, Florida State is a great brand. Clemson's a great brand, but there's SEC schools in there, right? It's like not quite. It's apples and oranges, but if the SEC wanted to take Iowa State, for example, they could go into Iowa. Iowa State, Ames, Iowa, in some ways aligns with the Southeastern Conference. It's an AAU university. It has a pretty decent fan base. But again, Iowa is, you've already got the Iowa Hawkeyes there in the Big Ten, and it would be harder to get your SEC flag. It's easier to go into virgin country, in other words. North Carolina, Virginia also has an international, a lot of international. And I'm not saying Clemson doesn't or Florida State doesn't. I'm just passing along. Oh, that's right. They're not AAU anymore. That's correct. I do hear him. I'm just giving you the reasons, Morris Simmons. Just giving the reasons I've been told. And really, I will say this. The Southeastern Conference presidents have not been shy. They have not been shy about what they want. They want North Carolina. We'll see if they can get them. We'll see if North Carolina wants to go, because North Carolina's got a lot of different factions in that university. We don't get any respect. I give you respect every time I do a show, guys. I say that Florida State has a huge brand, an emerging university. They're going to get to the P2. I think they're going to get there. I just don't think they're the number one targets. That's what we were told. That's why I did a show June 15th of last year. And by the way, after I did that show, 6 weeks later, you had multiple reports, articles written. Pete Thamel said it on his podcast. Brett McMurphy had a big old, one right after the other. Are they all lying? No, they're not all lying. They're all being told by people in the SEC. Tons of athletes from California and the West Coast and their families are moving to West Texas and the Texas Panhandle, Texas Tech territory. The nation is overlooking that fact. If they didn't take Mizzou, why would you take Kansas? If the Big Ten didn't add Kansas in 21 and 22, they're not adding them now. Kay Struthers, thank you, Kay Struthers. Thanking Anthony Carlson for his incredible generosity. Morris Simmons, the amount of money pouring into Tallahassee, and they have the state. Can you train neurosurgery, cardiology, or orthopedics in Tallahassee? No, you got to go to Miami, Florida, USF, which are all AAU schools. Tarleton State is the top target of the Big Ten. CFB Plus comes on in. Over 2,000 Floridians are eaten by rabid gators every year. Come on, Don. Come on, Don. Not 2,000. Leprechaun out to sabotage the Big Ten. Jose. has his say. Okay, just let me check here, making sure I have got all my bases covered. Again, we did our Clemson PATC Spotlight. If you missed it, go check it out. Cade Klubnik, Antonio Williams, Brian Wesco, T.J. Moore.
From
Tristan 5.
Tristan 5, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir.
Thanks for taking my call, Greg.
You bet.
Hey, listen, I wanted to comment about what you're saying here in regards to the Big Ten. You know, that it's right now, based on what you're telling us, and I trust what you're saying, they don't really seem to have interest right now in Florida State and Clemson. And it sounds to me like they're putting all their eggs in the wrong basket. I just feel like they're making a mistake by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
My thinking here is that, look, you may not get your first choice, but there's other choices that are worthy of being included in the conference. And, you know, they've made a lot of comments, or we've heard people make comments on their behalf saying that AAU status isn't required. Well, if it's not required, then why are you turning your nose up at Florida State and Clemson?
I don't think. Okay,
nuts.
first of all, it's not a requirement. Number one, it's not a requirement. Number two, I mean, the Big Ten has brought in Big Ten. They have expanded with non-AAU schools in the past. Michigan State is one back in the 50s. Ohio State back in 1919. Neither of those schools were AAU before they were brought in. Number two, I don't think it's I don't think they're putting all their eggs in one basket. I absolutely do not believe that at all. But they're not gonna take a domino piece. They have. How do I say this? They're not going to. They're going to continue to look at the landscape and make sure that North Carolina is not gettable before they move on to other possibilities. You always start with the top domino piece. The SEC is doing the same thing. If they were not, let's be honest here. Let's be honest. If Florida State was the number one target for the SEC in the Big Ten, don't you think Florida State would already have written the check? But they're not. Now you might say, well, they're making a big mistake. Maybe they are. But I don't think no door, in my opinion, Florida State, there's been no door shut on Florida State at all. They're just not the top domino piece. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, earlier in the program, we were talking about Duke, and you did make the comment that they've become more active probably because they're not getting any P2 interest. And see, that's an example to me of, that's part of what was prompting me to say this, is that how in the world can Duke not be of interest to the Big Ten if it turns out that North Carolina does in fact go to the SEC?
I think they would be. I think they would be of interest. That's why they're on the list. But
okay, well,
I think just because you're not at the top of the list doesn't mean there's not interest. There's a lot of schools that are not even on these lists because I have had no conversations about them with people. So just because you're not at the top doesn't mean there's not interest. It just means you don't really. The only schools that really control their own destiny on all these schools are Notre Dame and North Carolina.
Okay. Well, as a matter of, I don't know, I guess the word that I'm trying to come up with would be strategy.
Yep.
You know, if you're going to tell North Carolina, hey, you got to make a choice before we do anything else, maybe that's how they need to do it for the sake of the president. They don't want to commit. I understand, but strategically, if you went and got a Duke and then you got a Georgia Tech, that might make North Carolina change their mind. If you say, hey, look, we've already got these schools in the conference and Maryland is already there, you can come to the Big Ten and it'll be much more like home that you're used to right now.
Mm-hmm.
By making them wait and having it be up in the air as to who's going to come with them, I don't know. I think it makes it easier for North Carolina to say no when they do this.
And that was already tried by the Big Ten. They already did that. They did that over a decade ago. They did that with Rutgers and Maryland. They try to make it more, they already went that route. North Carolina already said no to them. Virginia, North Carolina already said no to the Big Ten, and they went and got Rutgers and Maryland. And now here we sit, and I don't think the Big Ten is going to do any pulling of any trigger because they really don't need to. They're a lot healthier now than they were back then when they were a one-region conference. Been told a million times, Notre Dame, North Carolina, they're going to wait to see. They're not desperate. They're not, they're going to have an opportunity. The SEC controls more of, they have more levers to pull than the Big Ten. Obvious reasons, because ESPN is the media partner of these ACC schools. There's probably a way that they can pull different levers to make something happen. But I get logically, you make absolutely 100%. You're making a lot of sense. It just doesn't. Yeah.
My concern is that I'm sure you already talked about this on a previous show, but with the Miami lawsuit with Wisconsin and Miami,
yep,
I'm scared a little bit that might deter the Big Ten from showing interest in Miami. Now, maybe it'll have no effect at all. I would hope it would have no effect. But if you strike Miami from the list for some reason because of that lawsuit,
yeah.
And they're holding off on Florida State and Clemson. And to me, I'm just looking at the whole scenario and I'm thinking, man, there's a danger here that they don't get anything in the Southeast. And I don't want that to happen. I want that they need to take steps forward and they need to plant the flag in here.
I agree.
That's my attitude.
I agree. And I think they'd really, I agree with you. And I think, yeah, I agree with you. I don't, the Miami situation, I don't think it's definitely not a death knell to anything, at least not yet. I've obviously asked the question, but we're all waiting on what Miami's reaction is going to be. We're all waiting if this takes care of itself before it goes to court. If this thing goes into court and then Miami is, it definitely could harm their prospects. Right now, from what I can gather, people have told me this could be more of a Mario Cristobal thing than a Miami thing. So we're just got to wait from Wisconsin's perspective. Now, people, Miami perspective, think this is a big joke. Screw you, Big Ten, and all that. But I'm talking from a Big Ten perspective. This could be just a Mario Cristobal situation. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, I just wanted to voice my concern.
You got it. Yeah.
And I appreciate you kind of talking me off the ledge a little bit.
No problem, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, Greg. Hey, listen, you take care. I'll catch you later.
You too. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Now, again, great call. Tristan 5, great call. Again, nothing is imminent. Nothing has been settled. Nobody has gotten an invitation. None of that has happened. Things are fluid. Things are active. Nothing is imminent. Every time I say this, I get somebody on a DM saying, Greg, when is it going to happen? You say it's going to happen. I would be the most shocked if we get up tomorrow morning and something happened. Because everybody that talks to me says no, nothing is imminent. But there is a lot of work behind the scenes. A lot of talking is going on, and it's all ethical and it's all legal because of the ACC settlement, where these schools know a dollar amount that gets them out of the conference, and they know the ACC has to accept their check. All they got to do is follow the ACC bylaws and put in their notice of withdrawal before August 15th, and they're in a different conference July 1st of the following year. So everybody can talk to everybody. Everybody is talking to everybody. But unlike, now this was already going to be way more complicated than any other realignment wave we have ever covered that there may have ever been. It's already been way more complicated. But add in the layer of private capital and private equity, baby. There's a lot of people talking, a lot of game planning, a lot of war gaming out. Again, if you're just joining us, you got to go back to the start of the show. Michigan, Wisconsin, that whole faction in the Big Ten, a lot of schools follow their lead when it comes to Big Ten decisions, when it comes to research decisions. The two major research Big Ten, there's a lot there. All of them are major research universities, but Michigan and Wisconsin at the top, you've basically historically had to secure their support. Not so much this time, because the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions are going to have the most stroke, because the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions acquiesced to the Oregon-Washington edition because they were a no. So was Iowa. But this is the information, looking at everything. This is the columns. These are the lists that these two Big Ten factions would be interested in, these candidacies for the next expansion in the Big Ten. Notre Dame, UNC, Virginia, of course, at the top of both factions. But then the rest of the schools do not control their own destiny. Miami, Georgia Tech, Duke on the Michigan, Wisconsin side. Miami, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Clemson, and Florida State on the Buckeye, Nittany Lions side. If you just join us, go back to the beginning of the live show. This was a monster of a live show. Monster. We talked about private equity. ESPN buying a little bit of the Premier Lacrosse League. Go check that out. We covered that story. When you think about the future possibility of private equity coming into the college sports space at a conference level, go check this article out. We did the PATC Spotlight. Today was Clemson. Cade Klubnik, the great quarterback, had a great second half of the year last year. Going to be passing it to Antonio Williams, the leader of their wide receiver room. And then you got Brian Wesco and TJ Moore, the great freshmen. No, they're not freshmen anymore. They're sophomores. Clemson, offense, defense, it should be all humming. At the very beginning of the season, they return 16 of 22 starters from last year. Clemson Tigers are going to be a very difficult out for anybody in college football. We talked a lot today about football and everything else in the Holy Smokes Theater. A major update. Go check it out. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe button and make sure you have your notifications turned on. We are a national college football YouTube channel. We cover everything in college football. We can come on at any time during the morning, afternoon, late at night to cover the breaking news all about college football. So you got to subscribe. You've got to turn on your notifications. Please smash the like button if you've liked our content today. Caleb Ramirez, would you say there's a 10% chance something being imminent by next summer? I would give it 10%, yes. I would give it at least 10% by next summer, but that's not imminent, right? For right now, that's not imminent. But yes, I would give it 10% chance or greater. Somebody writes a check next summer. And then those percentages are going to go really high the summer beyond that. Kayla Ramirez, thank you so much for being a member for 18 months. 18 months. Holy smokes. For those who want to become a member of our program, go to the link in the description box below the video. There is a link. Hit the link and become a member. Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. Those are membership only shows that gives you a little bit of a nugget, a little bit of a preview of what we're going to cover when it comes to breaking news. Today we did drop episode 58 about an hour and a half before we went on live. A lot of members of our program gave it a watch and knew a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So become a member, hit that link. I want to thank everybody who's joined us today for a massive Wednesday, June 25th show. Thank you so much for the donations to help us keep the lights on. Jimmy Austin, Jacober Cat, Amazing Blue, Ryan Willie, Daniel Gorby, Base Jurin, Anthony Carlson with a huge gift membership, Mr. Spartan, and Caleb Ramirez. I want to thank the callers. I want to thank everybody in the chat room. Unbelievable. PATC family came out like nobody's business. Maury Simmons, Big Ten concedes the SEC in realignment. Thank you for coming on in, Brooklyn Pizza. Appreciate it. Thank you, Cranky Tiger. I hope I did the Clemson spotlight okay. I hope I did okay for you Tiger fans out there. I didn't tell you anything that you already didn't know, right? I did not tell you guys anything that you already didn't know. Clemson is going to be a monster this year. What happened at DEF CON 2? Still DEF CON 2? Still DEF CON 2? Big Ten, they better not bend the knee. They better not bend the knee on the 5+11 with the SEC staying at 8 conference games. They won't. They can't. If they will, if they do, holy smokes. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please y'all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.